All right, well, welcome everyone. Today we're talking about how to fund the homeschool of your dreams. Just sharing a quick overview of the agenda. We're going to start by talking about some budget tips and tricks, and then we're going to talk about a couple of different funding options, ESA funds, and then homeschool charters. And then we'll wrap up just getting some takeaways and next steps from the group in the room. Today's goals are threefold. First, we want you to discover new ways to maximize your homeschool budget. We want you to learn about other funding resources for your homeschool. And most importantly, we want you to connect and build community with other homeschooling families. So we've got three awesome folks today on the call. I'm Christine Glandorf. I'm the business development lead here at Outschool, and I will be the MC. But your two main experts are Cassie. Cassie, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Cassie. I'm a partnership specialist here at Outschool. I primarily work with charter schools. So one of my main jobs is just to be a liaison between charter schools and charter families. And I actually am a charter school family. So we've always used a charter in our homeschool journey since we started back in first grade with my oldest, who's now in ninth grade. And we've used a number of charters, and the charter landscape has changed significantly over the last 9 years. So we've been there through a lot of interesting times, and I've got lots of knowledge that I'd love to share, and I'm always learning more about how things go.
Awesome. Thanks.
And I'm Tegan. I'm our professional learning specialist here at Outschool. So I lead up all of the professional learning that educators on Outschool. So all of the kiddos all of the teachers that your kiddos are taking classes with, we work through different ways that they can reach all learners with, in regards to neurodiversity, instructional techniques, different ways of instructional activities that they can do, you name it, it's pretty endless. But aside from that, I'm also a homeschooling mom. My kiddos are now in high school, and we homeschooled middle and high school in the state of Florida. So I know I didn't see any Florida pop up in the chat, but I know we have quite a few Florida homeschooling families, and happy to speak on those sorts of kind of homeschool areas.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to start talking first about homeschool budget. We've taken this estimate from Time for Learning, but homeschooling is estimated to cost an average of $700 to $1,800 per student annually. So this means that for a family of four, you can be spending anywhere from $1,400 to $3,600 per year. And so today we're going to explore different ways to creatively fund and manage your homeschool budget. We're going to talk about three different things. First, we're going to start with budget tricks, and then we're going to hit educational spending accounts or ESAs, and then we're going to talk lastly about homeschool charters. So we'll start now with budget tips or tricks, and I'm going to hand it over first to Cassie to share a little bit about her homeschooling journey and how they think about their homeschool budget.
So as I mentioned before, we are a charter family in California. California has a pretty unique charter system to most of the other states. Some states are starting to have more charter options, but we've had this option here for quite a while. So we use our charter funds. Each of my girls gets a stipend to use. That it's kind of like a virtual bank account that we get to use every year on approved activities, including Outschool. We also just use a lot of free community resources. The local library puts on events. And obviously checking out books. Don't forget the Libby app. It's my favorite for personal use for mom books as well as kid books. It's a free app, and you can connect your local library card to the app and then check out Kindle versions of all kinds of books just for kids and adults. We do free Outschool events that are available. Some of them took place this weekend for Adventure. We also use free or inexpensive field trips set up by local homes groups or even myself. Free museum days and month. October in San Diego is, I think in most places maybe, is like free kid month. So all of our local museums, we have Balboa Park, which is fabulous. The zoo, SeaWorld, all those places end up offering free admission to kids. So we really take advantage of that. And other like buy one, get one free type things. I have twins. So anywhere I can save a buck on getting both of them in someplace is great. And then we also use just inexpensive curriculums and online resources. Teaching textbooks is a great math curriculum that we've used. It's online. It's very inexpensive. It's very self-paced, self-correcting, which if you're a working mom is very helpful. Math UC is another resource that we've used. We've used the Math UC curriculum in and of itself. It's a great curriculum. It's a pretty inexpensive as well. However, they do have free math drills that you can use on their website that you don't have to use their curriculum to use. So you can just log onto their website, go, and you'll find that section. And they have multiplication drills and different math facts that my kids will use if they want to build math skills there. Another huge thing in the homeschool community is just borrowing materials and other things from friends, especially when you're about to spend, $100 or $200 on a curriculum you've never actually put your hands on. It's nice to reach out to your local homeschool community and say, hey, do you have this? Can I come look at it? Can I thumb through it? Can I borrow it for a month and try it with my kids and see if it's something that I want to spend a bunch of money on? I borrow novels from friends. I just did that yesterday. Games, puzzles. We do a lot of game schooling. So if there's a game that we haven't tried, or maybe we just can't fit another one on the shelf, we borrow from friends and kind of keep my husband happy with a little bit of obsession with buying games. So puzzles, science equipment, all that stuff. It's use your resources, and they don't have to be homeschool families to borrow from them. Ask kids families that are in public school if they have a novel that you need, and it's a great free resource.
Awesome.
Cassie, I would just be getting another shelf. Just get another shelf. It's okay.
Listen, that's my philosophy, but my husband feels otherwise.
I love it. I can share a few of mine. A lot of the budget tips that I would share are going to be really the same as Cassie's in terms of looking at, curricula and resources and the community resources and some cheap and inexpensive online resources. But I also want to call out, I do homeschool my high school kiddos, which is a little bit different than our elementary. And so we do a lot of learning around our community. We live in Central Florida, and so we have Theme Park Central here. And so there's a lot of homeschool days, a lot of homeschool discounts that are available to us where we live. Might have to drive a little bit, but we do take advantage of those. We purchase a lot of annual passes, which do justify themselves when you look at the grand scheme of the year. I remember we did a SeaWorld annual pass one time, and there was a lot of marine science that we were able to learn that year because of it. Museum reciprocity agreements. If you have local history museums, science museums, you can actually check in with them that there might be a reciprocity agreement that they have. Ours, we were able to access children's museums. We were able to access art museums. Oh my goodness. And it wasn't just in our state. So it was really nice because when we traveled, the museums that we had packages with, they had reciprocity across the country. So when we were traveling, we were still able to learn. Really, really awesome. Events at our local library and community centers. Just this morning, we had our book sale. So you bet yourself I was there getting more books that we would have to read. I was really excited about that. Community centers, we just were able to participate in a fantastic raised bed gardening. And so your libraries, your community centers are going to be able to provide you with opportunities that are for the whole community, but can really tie in and amplify your homeschooling. They're going to give you certain access to things. I know our library card gives us access to state parks at certain times of the year that we wouldn't have to pay the parking fee or the entrance fees because of that. We also utilize some resources that are just available to us, whether through the state or through other venues. Academic scholarships, yes, Cassie, the 4th grade, I love that one. Academic scholarships, so I am in Florida and we do not as a family qualify for the ESAs or the academic scholarships that are here in the state, so we do fund our own homeschool. But know and look into what is available from your state, if there is something that is available to your particular learners. We do utilize dual enrollment. My 16-year-old is in his 3rd semester of college, where he will very happily tell you he has a 4.0. So utilize that. Dual enrollment in a lot of states is going to either be very inexpensive or free. Here in Florida, we do not pay for our tuition. We do not pay for our books. Everything that we have from dual enrollment is free, and he will walk away from that with college credit that is accepted at most colleges and universities. That can't be said for our AP courses. So keep those sorts of things in mind as you're looking at high school and preparation for college, if that is the route that your learner is going to go. We also can audit courses and participate in some of our cooperative extension classes. Soil, we wanted to learn about soil, and we live in Florida. So we have orange groves and things like that that we can learn about, and we go right into the sources. And the last thing that I wanted to call out is volunteering and observing. We have participated in some different youth advisory committees where our kiddos can go into the community, they volunteer with this group, they advise the community organizations, Department of Housing, youth groups, all sorts of things around our particular community. They're able to advise. They volunteer in and around our community. They don't know it. They're going to be pulling out orange trees next weekend. It'll be a great learning experience, as well as just community events. They get to go and participate and observe and help out in a lot of different ways there. And even though they are, they're participating in terms of volunteering, through all of these, they're learning and growing real life skills, which is so valuable.
Awesome. Well, we're going to do a quick summary of some of these budget tips and tricks. Cassie and Tegan have given quite the overview, but we'll just dash through a few other ones that we think are worth calling out. So Cassie, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so a budget tip: borrow, rent, or buy used curriculum. Use Facebook and other local groups to do that.
And also check out your library. Go in, have them be your best friend. Your librarians will get to know you and will be able to make sure that those books that you're looking for are there, help you kind of speed up any process to grab books from other partnerships that they have with other libraries, so that what's in the library is not all that is available to you.
Agreed. And take advantage of free resources and other opportunities online. I'm going to hyperlink one here in the chat in just a second with some great resources, but some of our favorites are YouTube, documentaries, Khan Academy, and CK12.
Life skills. Oh yeah. So this is a favorite of mine. I want to make sure that my teenagers, when they leave the house in a few years, they're ready to take on the world. They can take care of themselves without calling me to ask, Mom, how do I do the laundry? Mom, how do I, make macaroni and cheese, or whatever it is that they're trying to do. So incorporating those life skills, giving them a day to create a menu, helping them to learn how to budget that, go to the grocery store, call their own doctor, all of those sorts of things are life skills that we absolutely can incorporate into our homeschool, and they're all free. Doing those are not going to be anything more than your normal grocery budget or your normal things that you're doing.
Take advantage of your streaming services. We are huge fans of Disney Plus here and the National Geographic portion of their section. We watch documentaries constantly. I think we've watched Free Solo, the Free Solo of El Cap in Yosemite, about once a month. My kids love it. And so we just take advantage, and they're always adding new content. Curiosity Stream is another great streaming service that's really inexpensive. I think it's like $12 or $13 for the whole year. So that's a great option. And they have a whole kids section that has fantastic documentaries.
Yeah, and I just found out about a resource I think is pretty exceptional. It's a website called Free Forest School, and they connect families with forest schools in their local community. So just think it's a really neat effort, and it's all free. So check it out.
This one. Okay. Homeschooling on a budget. Homeschools, and then homeschool skill and childcare exchange. Consider Outschool as well, but we do a lot of hey, can you take my kids? And a friend will be, hey, I'm going to do a science experiment with them for the day. I've done science co-ops with people where as parents, we each, take a different section of a science curriculum and teach different hands-on things. And we meet at a park. So one, it's not so messy in your own house. And, and two, it gets the kids out, lets them play. We pack a lunch and do picnic lunch afterwards, and just have a great community, but also get our kids doing some hands-on stuff in groups.
And this was already mentioned in the chat earlier at the start of our session, but Teachers Pay Teachers, or more commonly known as TPT, there are a lot of resources on there that are both inexpensive or completely free. So you can find things that will, match what you're working on in terms of learning, can help you to really facilitate some maybe gaps that you feel like you have if there's something you're not really sure about, or you can even share your own resources as well. So if you are like myself, I'm always creating something for my kids, we can put it up onto TPT and not just have that resource for our own kiddos, but like somebody else mentioned, use that to fund their homeschooling as well.
Awesome. We also wanted to highlight a few other funding sources to consider. So in a number of states, you can draw down from a tax advantage 529 plan for homeschooling. And I've highlighted those there as well. And then you can also take advantage of some tax breaks for homeschooling in Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Minnesota, and Iowa. And then there are a number of curriculum grants via HSLDA or Equity in Home Education that you can apply for. And as Tegan mentioned, it's worth taking a look at dual enrollment programs as your learners start to age into high school as well. So we've shared a lot with you all, but we also know that there's a lot of brilliant people and thoughtful and creative people in the room here. So we wanted to pause for a second and just collect budget tips or tricks from the room. And we're going to aggregate these using a tool called Mentimeter, and then we're going to share them out. So what you can do if you've got your phone handy is you can go ahead and scan the QR code, or Cassie will drop the link into the chat. But what you'll see when you click on it is we're going to do a little word cloud. So you can go ahead and submit some of the ways that you think about creatively funding your homeschool. And then we'll go ahead and see the results pop up here. So I'm going to go ahead and give everybody a second just to pop in and share some thoughts. And if for any reason you're like just not, Mentimeter's not working for you or you're not feeling it, you can always go ahead and pop them in the chat as well, and we'll collect those so we can share them out after the fact. So let's go ahead. Let's see if we're, Cassie, are you able to pop that in? I'll pop back over to the QR code for now. Oh, there we go. We got folks starting to share.
The link's in the chat. Please let me know if it's not working, and I'd be happy to throw it back up. Christine, I don't see the QR code up. I don't know if we're gonna.
I'm starting to just pull in the
words.
The words.
This is fun.
I know, it's magical.
Christine, would you mind repeating the prompt for those 3 words for everybody just one more time?
Yeah, it is. What are your tips or tricks for homeschooling on a budget? I love the little hanging lifestyle.
Yeah, I love that. That's funny.
Use bookstores.
This is great. Yeah, used bookstores is another one. And oftentimes too, your library will have a used bookstore attached to it. So our local libraries all have what's called Friends of the Library. And our local library sells like chapter books for 25 cents, 50 cents. So it's a great resource. And then it also benefits your local library. And our library uses the money that is generated from their bookstore to put on events for the library that are then free, that your kids can attend. So it's kind of a, mutually beneficial relationship there to buy some used books from the library. And oftentimes, like, teachers who are retiring will go and donate entire class sets of a novel that you might be looking for. So there's usually a wide variety of books to find.
Also, a great thing with the library is sometimes they have those homeschool curriculums. And so, kind of, Cassie, you were mentioning earlier, the borrowing from a friend to check it out before you purchase it and make that investment. A lot of times you can actually do that right at your local library, or they might be able to point you in the direction of that particular resource. So before you go and purchase the curriculum, get your hands on it. See if you like it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we've got some great thoughts here. Cassie, Tegan, are there any questions in the chat that we should pause on before we move to talk about ESAs and then charters?
think we've been covering most of them. I think we're good.
Awesome. All right, let's keep going. Oh, I forgot. We actually have a couple of quick tips for using Outschool on a budget that we'll run through, and then we'll chat about ESAs. But the first tip that we have to share is when you're on outschool.com, the search filters are really invaluable in terms of helping you narrow down what you need. And one of our favorite tips is to make sure that you're searching for classes that are less than $20 or less than $10. And Cassie is actually our resident, what I call class concierge. So she's going to pop into the chat some of her favorite budget friendly classes that are on Outschool right now.
That first one was a little messy, so I'm going to separate them out, but they're coming.
Awesome. One other tip we have is there's a type of class on our platform that is called a flex class. And these are completely asynchronous classes. And I think they're great because they're not only cost effective, but they also allow you to create a schedule that works for your learner. And a number of your favorite educators may have versions of their classes in the flex format. And again, our resident class concierge, Cassie, is going to share a link to some of our favorite flex classes.
My kids are taking a flex writing class right now, and it's been incredible. So highly recommend.
And then our last tip is if you've never gone onto the platform, under your profile, you'll see a little give 20, get 20 code. Gosh, I always call you out, Cassie, but she is also the queen of referrals and then is able to leverage a lot of the additional funds on the platform to power just great learning experiences. Cassie, anything you'd share about that?
Yeah, just talk about Outschool and then share your, I keep my share link on a note on my phone so that it's really easy to just copy and paste it and text it to a friend, or like at a homeschool park day, or we do an in-person enrichment day every Monday. So if I'm sitting and I'm chatting about different things and sharing resources that way, it's something I can very easily text another parent. And it's a great way to earn some free money to use on Outschool.
Awesome. All right. Now we're going to chat about educational spending accounts. I can't believe I forgot our Outschool tips and tricks. So first things first, before we dive into ESAs, I just want to check to see if there are any specific questions that we can answer. So I'll give everyone a moment to plop their questions into the chat, and then we'll go ahead. So Cassie, Tegan, if anything pops up, let me know.
We have one question about when will New Hampshire EFA be on Outschool?
Awesome. That's a great question. So we are, we'll go over where we're currently live. We are actively looking at the opportunity to expand to other states. I can't give you a definitive date, though I'm optimistic that within the next year we'll be live there. But one key thing to note is we do regularly process reimbursements or help families process reimbursements. So while we're not live everywhere yet, we can support families who can seek reimbursements through some states as well. Cassie, any other questions from the group? All right, I'm going to get rolling, and I'm sure more will pop in. I just wanted to see if there was anything specific here before we got started. So first of all, what is an ESA? An ESA stands for Educational Scholarships Accounts. Sometimes they're also called Empowerment Scholarships Accounts or Education Savings Accounts. And these are awarded by U.S. states to families who withdraw from public or charter schools for another schooling option. And they can be, ESAs can be spent on virtual learning, homeschool, private school, tutoring, community college, higher education, and other educational resources or materials. And they help reduce the financial barriers for schooling for those who need alternative resources. And right now, more than $650 million in funding is being awarded to families each year. So one key note about ESAs, as someone called out, is that they are not everywhere yet. I've called out the list of states that currently have some version of an ESA, and they include Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Idaho, Mississippi, Missouri, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Ohio, Tennessee, Texas, West Virginia, Iowa, and actually Utah, as of yesterday, just approved what will be a pretty universal ESA. The key note here is each state has different guidelines for program eligibility, scholarship amounts, and how families can spend their ESA funds. So should you be considering a move to a state or you want to learn more about your local ESA, it's important to go directly to the state site to learn more about who qualifies and how to get approved. Some of the non-universal ESAs will have specific restrictions or factors that will determine your eligibility. And so these things will include they're specifically for children with special needs or on an IEP. And so again, it's important to go directly to your state's ESA to sort of better understand the requirements. I will, however, say that Arizona is leading the way in regards to a more universal ESA. As I just mentioned, Iowa and Utah have also opened up pretty expansive ESAs. And so while at the moment, more of them have sort of stricter eligibility, I would not be surprised if there's are more expansive ESAs coming. And that's because coming out of the pandemic, there's been a lot of increased interest and support for ESAs, and in particular, universal ESAs. So there are a number of sites. Love Your School is an interesting one to check out, and organizations within states where they're advocating for these sort of policies. So if you don't live in a state that currently has an ESA or universal ESA, I encourage you to take a look at a site like Ed Choice or School Choice Week, and they'll have resources to better understand how you can advocate for these sort of policies where you live. So again, to answer the question, we are currently supporting ESAs in Arizona, North Carolina, and Texas via a partnership with an organization called Class Wallet. And we are directly featured in the Class Wallet marketplace in these states. But however, in other states, we regularly reimburse or we regularly see families seeking reimbursement for Outschool. The two most common ones we see right now are Ohio and Florida. But it's certainly, if you're using Outschool very regularly and you are able to use ESA funds, it's worth reaching out to your program manager if we have not been set up in Class Wallet yet to see if you can seek reimbursement. We are also working on a application to be a vendor in Idaho, and I expect that will be live in April. And then my last note is we do, often in life, the best tip is to ask. We often see in our support channel a number of families who we help get reimbursement. We can produce basically a receipt of all your consolidated classes. And these families will get reimbursed either through a public school that they're doing virtual classes through, or we've actually seen a number of states where families can leverage what they call self-determination funds, and we've been supporting those families and seeking reimbursement. So feel free to reach out to support@outschool.com if you need help with that, and then also contact your state program manager to see what their rules and regulations are. All right. Before we skip to homeschool charters and I let Cassie kind of take the reins, Cassie, Tegan, any questions that we should tackle?
Gabrielle wants to know if anyone is familiar with homeschooling in Alabama. and would like any tips and resources that people could share. So if you're in the chat and you homeschool in Alabama, I would say you could help Gabrielle out. Also, we will get the link for you for the Facebook group. We have an Outschool group that's specifically for homeschoolers who use Outschool, and that would be a great place to ask other people if they homeschool in Alabama, if they have tips. So we'll get that link for you. Looks like Tegan or Megan took care of it. Thanks, Megan.
All right, let's dig into homeschool charters. All right, Cassie, I've got the slides.
Okay, so what is a homeschooling charter school? Homeschool charters are public charter schools. So technically, legally speaking, if you're in a charter in California, you are actually a public school student. But they partner with homeschooling families who choose to homeschool or educate their kids in a non-one-size-fits-all way to co-educate their students. These charters are often found in California, Alaska, and British Columbia and Canada, but they are starting to pop up in some other states, and they provide an allotment of funds, often called charter funds or educational units, to homeschooling families enrolled in their program. They can be used on a variety of instructional resources and services, including Outschool. How does Outschool work with homeschooling charters? From 2017, Outschool began partnering with homeschooling charter schools, starting in California. 50 plus schools currently list Outschool as an approved vendor on their vendor list. Average amount of money students get it's actually per student, not per family. I should have edited that. It's $2,300 usually per student. High schoolers typically do get a little bit more, with the theory being they need more requirements to graduate. We currently have 3,887 learners in Outschool classes in 2022 that were charter school students. So there's a lot of you out there using Outschool, using your funds on Outschool, including myself. And how do homeschooling charter families spend their charter funds? We'll run through this really quickly. Families request their classes. You'll have to speak with your individual charter school to know what the process is for you. But you'll put in a request typically through your school's billing portal for the Outschool class. Speak with your representative to find out the exact process. Your teacher will review and approve or deny based upon what your rules are. And then once approved, the HST or someone at your school will book and pay for the class in one of a couple different ways that are listed there. Please keep in mind that we can't reimburse for classes that you've already taken. Can homeschooling charter families book all class formats? Groups are pretty much no across the board. We do have Outschool groups that are not usually or ever eligible to use charter funds. So some homeschool charter schools have different rules about the class formats that learners are allowed to take. While most charters will allow one-to-one classes, a few won't approve them. My charter is actually one of them, will not approve one-to-one tutoring on the platform. Families cannot enroll in groups, like I said, although you can pay out of pocket, and groups are very inexpensive. That's actually a budget tip we should have given you earlier. Groups are a fantastic, inexpensive way for your kids to connect with other kids on their interests. Families typically can't book any classes using their funds during school breaks, so summer vacations, spring break, that, etc. So one-time classes, multi-day semester, flex classes, and camps. Pretty much every charter will approve those. Groups are no, and one-on-one classes and ongoing classes are kind of it depends, depending on your charter. Tips and tricks. It can take up to 2 weeks for schools to approve classes, and each school has different rules and restrictions. So we always recommend that you request a class that's at least 2 weeks out for a start date, if not a little more, depending on your unique school situation. Outschool can't be reimbursed for past classes, like I said. Speak with your charter homeschool teacher regarding your school's method for registering for an on-school class, and even coming up with some classes that might be a good fit for your learner and the goals you're trying to accomplish. You can also email support@outschool.com with any questions or tech issues. I threw that email up in the chat earlier. And you're also welcome to reach out to me if you need help finding classes. Not only am I a homeschool mom and an employee of Outschool, but I'm an Outschool user. So I spend a lot of time. In fact, my first role here at Outschool was on the planner service that existed when we were in the heart of COVID and things were crazy. But I helped find people classes. It's all I did every day. So I'm decently good at it and would love to help you. I love doing that.
So we'd love now to pause if there are folks here who are joining us from a homeschool charter to see if there are any other questions that they have that we can make sure we answer while you've got our expert Cassie here with us.
It is divine, Megan. It's very fun. It also, I mean, as an Outschool user, it also gives me ideas for what I want my kids to take. And I'll be like, ooh, let me favorite this for later. That's that whole like credit card, you know, and or purchasing without looking at the credit card bill you were mentioning earlier. Not seeing any questions, Christine.
Awesome. All right. So Cassie, for those who are in the room, do you want to tell them about one other community where they can or a few other communities where they can continue to learn and connect with other homeschool families?
Yeah, if you are not already in our general Outschool community, I would highly recommend that you join. It's kind of the parent of all of our other groups where you're able to find out about events like this and connect with other Outschool users and teachers. We also have a homeschool specific group that I believe Megan shared earlier, the link, and hopefully can share again in the chat for me. For any homeschooler around the world who wants to join and get some tips and tricks. And then we're also launching this coming week a group that's specific to charter school families. Hopefully you can connect with other Outschoolers who are at your specific charter or at other charters in the state that you're in and get some tips and tricks about classes they're taking, things that are helping them meet their goals. And I'm going to throw, well, you can use the QR code there, but I'm also going to throw that link here in the chat so that you can join that. And we will start admitting people to that this coming week.
Awesome. So we have rocked through a lot of tips and tricks, a lot of hopefully helpful information. So we want to close out the conversation today with just understanding where folks are and what they're taking away. So we'd love to hear what you learned and what you want to learn next. So you can go ahead and pop that in the chat. And then we moved through at what I would call an efficient clip. So if there are any questions, Cassie and Tegan, that are sort of top of mind in the chat or pop up, I think we've got a couple of minutes we can definitely to answer them as well.
Looks like we have a question, Christine, about an article that Joyce read that said in the spring, public schools in Florida did connect, I guess, with varsity tutors for one-on-one tutoring, and is Outschool doing something like this? And I don't know if Tegan knows more since she's in Florida about that relationship.
I know a little bit. I haven't heard the varsity tutors one, but I know that both Hillsborough County and Palm Beach County, which are two of our largest counties in the state of Florida, they had a partnership with Paper, which is a different organization for high volume tutoring like that. Unfortunately, from what I've done with my research regarding that, is that the counties did not utilize the hours, and it didn't end up being the price per pupil that had been specified in the original contracts. Because what we know, right, as educators, and I'll put my educator hat on for a moment, what we know as educators is that in order to have great tutoring experiences, you can't just pick a random person off of the shelf every time you're engaging in tutoring. There has to be relationship. There has to be a connection between the learner and their instructor, which is what we have here at Outschool, thankfully. So not entirely answering that question, and I will definitely pass it over to Christine, but I do want to call out that it is so important and such a great benefit here at Outschool that learners are able to establish, and parents are able to establish that rapport with the educators that they are forming these one-on-one tutoring and small group class environments with. And that is key for learning. That's key to how kids learn.
Yeah. I'm going to piggyback on that and say that one of the things we use Outschool for is my charter won't pay for one-on-one tutoring. So this is something that we've facilitated with a 2-on-1 tutoring situation. So it is private. No one else on the platform can join the class. And it's one of my daughters who is a neurodiverse learner and another friend of ours whose daughter is neurodiverse. And they learn very, very similarly. They also happen to be the best of friends. And we have found an amazing educator on Outschool who is curating the class for them, for their needs, works with the other parent and I, every unit to kind of say, hey, this is how they're doing. This is where I want to learn. How do you think about teaching math? Like currently they are learning math, division, multiplication through planning a unicorn party. And they have invitations and stickers. And Tegan and Christine laugh because we talk about our kids all the time and share pictures. And so they have, I mean, I have an invitation right back here from my daughter, unicorn invitation to join their unicorn party, but they are learning math through that. And it's such this special relationship that they have that would not have been possible by just picking a tutor off a shelf. And they're building their math skills too, which is something I super appreciate because math and my daughter and I are like this. So it's been just such a lovely experience. And I would highly recommend reaching out to educators on the platform first before you just, especially for a tutoring situation, reach out and see if you think they're going to be a good fit. Read their bio, watch their video, see if it's something you think is going to work well for your learner. And there's so many tutors and fantastic educators on the platform. You're going to find more than one that will fit your needs. I'm positive.
Yeah, and I'll just take it back to the original question. So we do have a number of partnerships with public schools and public school districts. Right now, our focus is on public schools and programs that support learners at home because we found the best fit as you can see with families who have the flexibility and have a learner at home. Although we do have one other way that we work with some school districts that I won't go into now. I think one of the reasons we are currently not working with kind of the broader public school system is what Tegan spoke to, which is we want to work with schools when they're ready to programmatically deploy a program like Outschool because we want to make sure that the utilization is right. So I certainly think it will be something in the future for us, but for now, the partnerships that we're pursuing are with programs like, for example, we work with Oklahoma City Public Schools and they have a large virtual program and we support them. But that's been the best fit for us at the moment. But it's certainly a goal for us longer term to find those right partnerships where we can be as impactful as possible. All right. Any other questions, Cassie or Tegan, that feel worth a quick
Catherine
chat?
has a great question based on kind of the flexibility and freedom of homeschooling versus having the financial assistance of something like a charter or an ESA. And I will tell you that as a homeschool, I mentioned earlier on that the landscape of charter schools in California has changed significantly since I started almost 10 years ago now. The things I was able to use my funds on when I started have shifted. It's there's a narrower focus of what I can do. And I will be honest and tell you there's more regulations now than there used to be on the things I have to do, especially when they're in high school. There's a lot more things that are required of me. I know a lot of families who feel like the funding is just not worth it. And they want the freedom and they want to teach what they want to teach, when they want to teach it, how they want to teach it. I have found a really good marriage between funds, but still having the flexibility to do what I want. And for me, the financial assistance is worth it. But I do know that's a very personal choice, just like homeschooling is, right? Homeschooling is one of the biggest reasons we all homeschool is because education is not one size fits all. And our unique families and our kids even within our families are unique. I have twins. They learn very differently. One struggles with math and needs an Outschool help. The other one is like constantly, I'm like, show your work, child. And she's like, why? I get it right all the time. And I'm like, okay, fair. She just can do all the math calculations in her head. So homeschooling is such a special, unique thing that allows us to tailor our kids' education to their unique needs and also to our family needs. So I would say it's really one of those personal choices that I know families who have kind of alternated. This year, they feel like the funds are worth it. Next year, they don't. And then the following year, they might again. So it's one of those things that is so personal. Currently, I think that it is worth it for us, but it may not be in the future. So we'll see.
Yeah. And I can, just to piggyback off what Cassie's saying, I do not qualify in the state of Florida for any sort of assistance. Everything that we do in our homeschooling is 100% funded by myself and my husband. And I love that. I love that I don't have, as a former educator in a traditional, I was a public school teacher for over a decade. I am very appreciative of the fact that there is no one kind of standing over my shoulder telling me what my kids have to do. And if we want to take a day off to go play at an amusement park, we do it. So I think that everybody, like Cassie is saying, is very different. And the lack of oversight in terms of from a different entity other than myself, I don't mind giving up those funds. I'm okay with it. And I think that is going to be different for every single person. But I think there's ways around it. And I think some of the other budgeting things that we found that are outside of ESAs and outside of state funding, there are some other budget things that we absolutely can utilize that'll help make that more budget friendly while maintaining your autonomy.
Awesome. All right. I'll Cassie, Tegan, any other final thoughts before I let the folks go? I know I certainly have learned so much from you both, and I'm glad to hear the conversation going in the chat. I wanted to just say that this isn't a conversation that has to end today. Cassie invited you all to our Facebook groups, but also we've shared Cassie's email if you need help finding classes, but also again, I'll just mention that support@outschool.com. If you do have access to funds that require some sort of reimbursement, or you just have a question about or a recommendation for us, we'd love to hear from you. I know there was some discussion in the chat about a connection in New Hampshire, for example. So please don't feel like today ends that conversation. We're excited to partner with you all and be supportive. So that's my final note. Cassie, Tegan, anything else before we close out?
I was going to piggyback on what Christine said earlier about, never being afraid to ask a question. Like we talked about earlier, the homeschool landscape is changing across the country. Education is changing across the country. Post-COVID, with funds that are now being available from both state and federal government entities for remediation and for the loss of learning that took place through COVID, stuff is changing pretty rapidly with all of that stuff. So if your state or your community ends up having a program that is newer and you want to know if it's something that we can accept, email support@outschool.com. We learn too when you guys say, hey, do you accept XYZ funds? And then we can take the time to look into some of those things and see if it's a partnership that we can foster. So I would say definitely reach out if you know things. We're all lifelong learners here. So we're happy to learn about new things that are going on in your communities and your states, because it's changing quickly.
Yeah, and I'll just, last parting thought here is bringing your kids into the budgeting of your homeschool is fantastic. I know we utilize gift cards. We'll purchase gift cards to certain bookstores. We purchase gift cards to Outschool, especially quite a bit. And so my kids have the ability to go in, to find the classes that they're wanting to take, and they have a certain budget that they can spend on different kind of categorizations that we've created as a family of classes. So for example, my one son is so into Dungeons and Dragons, and he would gladly spend all of his gift cards on there, but there has to be a budget of some sort and a balance. And so we encourage him to identify what that balance is. He sets the balance and he spends his own gift cards on those sorts of things. So make that also a learning experience. Bring that budgeting and that learning into what they're doing in their homeschool.
I love it, Tegan. Work smarter, not harder. That's brilliant.
I'm going to piggyback really
genius.
quick, because there was a comment in the chat I wanted to address. Gabrielle said that she's interested in homeschooling and appreciates this session. People have been sharing all their fears and stigmas about homeschooling, and it's nice to hear a more empowering stance on it. I would tell you that, my mom is a retired public school teacher. My in-laws are both retired public school teachers. My brother-in-law is a retired public school teacher. And I have a number of friends who are current public school teachers. When I made the choice to homeschool our kids, my husband and I did, I got a lot of kickback. I was one of the only people I knew who homeschooled. It was a really rough transition for me. Because I loved public school. I loved school. I'm the kid who had maybe or maybe not had like 5 of my teachers at my wedding. So I loved school. And I had a fantastic experience. So I'm not homeschooling my kids because I had a really negative public school experience. So I would say read books, join communities, find your group that's going to support you through that. Know you're not alone. Join some of our communities. And I will tell you, I had a moment recently because I got the same kickback. My oldest, who's a 9th grader, decided that she really wanted to try public school for high school. It's been a really interesting transition for us. I am not a good public school mom, but I will tell you that we just got her semester grades, and I had so many people tell me that I would fail my kids if I homeschooled them, and that they would never be able to transition back into public school or into real life post-school. And we just got her transcript, and she is number 47 out of like 497 kids in the 9th grade class with her GPA. So I'm super proud of her. And she clearly has transitioned well back into public schooling. And I just really believe in doing what you want for your family and what works best for your learners. You know your kids best. So feel empowered to do this and use Outschool and the support network that we have to help.
I love that, Cassie. And sorry, Christine, I'm going to steal it away and just
no, go.
Really
you guys are the best. Please share.
Because same experience with my older son is 16, just turned 16 a few months ago, and is dual enrolled at our local college. And so he is taking classes with other dual enrolled students, sure, a couple, but most of his classmates are in their 20s. They're, 18, 19, 20. I think one of the people in his group project right now is in their mid 40s. And the fact that he's able to hold his own with these classmates, he was working on a group project and having to organize them and lead the project work and lead that sort of organization speaks to his development in homeschooling over these past several years, being able to organize himself, being able to learn those executive functioning skills that we teach at home. And so it's so awesome to see that he is rocking it out and doing as well as he's doing. With the experiences that we've been able to provide in homeschooling. And I threw it in the chat, but there's no right way to homeschool. Everybody's going to do it very, very differently. And you're not doing it wrong ever. You will make mistakes. You will realize that, hey, that did not work as well as I thought it was going to. That happened to us earlier this week with an experiment we were going to do. And I got too scared because there was fire. And I said, nope, we're just not going to do that today. So keep in mind that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to find things that didn't work for you. And it's absolutely fine to normalize those mistakes with your kiddos.
And Veronica, quickly, I'm going to address your question about what dual enrollment is. Typically, dual enrollment is not for younger kids. It's for like the high school level where they're dual enrolling in a college. Sometimes it can be a community college. Our local community college that happens to be across the street from the high school dual enrolls. And so sometimes it can actually be, though, a 4-year university. So it just kind of depends on your state and what's allowed and the college itself. Not all colleges allow it. So you can reach out. And I know I have some friends here in California who have dual enrolled in out-of-state private colleges as well. So there's lots of opportunities available, but that's typically what dual enrollment means. It's for those older kids. It's not for the elementary age in that context.
Depending on your state. Here in Florida, you can be 12. And I have heard of kids as young as 8 and 9 in other states doing dual enrollment, which blows my mind.
Ditto.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. It was great. Just such a pleasure to be here today with you all. And please stay in touch as you continue on your homeschool journey. We are obviously very passionate and excited to support you all and just wish you all the best.